Hi, I'm Christina Rainville. I'm running for State's Attorney of Bennington County as an independent. I was the Chief Deputy State's Attorney for 8.5 years. I know everything there is to know about running that office. But the most important thing about my time as Chief Deputy is what I accomplished for Bennington County. I argued a case and won before the United States Supreme Court for Bennington County. I took on a huge challenge, wrote a petition to the Supreme Court asking them to take the case, researched and wrote all of the briefs necessary, and I was the one who stood up in court before the U.S. Supreme Court in Washington and successfully argued the case for Bennington County. That case, called the Brillin case, has become a landmark case in criminal law. It's been cited by over 500 courts. In the 8.5 years that I was Chief Deputy, I also tried 25 jury trials. These were the most serious cases in the office involving egregious felonies and complicated cases with experts. I also, in that time, handled 25 appeals before the Vermont Supreme Court. I was also the go-to person in the office when there was a crisis. When a boy went missing after school under very concerning circumstances, I was the one who got the call from the state police. I was the one who asked the state police to issue Vermont's first Amber Alert. And I was the one who dropped everything and raced to the emergency command center that the state police were setting up in Manchester. I was the one who worked through the night with the state detectives, state police detectives, helping them in any way and every way that I could, and being available for any kind of legal question, including things like what could they do in an emergency search. And when we got the great news, we got a phone call from New Hampshire that the boy was safe and in New Hampshire, I was the one who then stayed on with the lead detective and continued to work beyond the wee hours of the night to draft all of the necessary legal papers. And I was the one who called the judge in the middle of the night and asked him if we could fax these papers to the court and get a quick order. I also was the go-to person for handling important matters in the legislature. I worked hand in hand with Senator Dick Sears on drafting and getting bills made into laws that would better protect people in Bennington, especially children. I'm most proud of the work that I did changing the statute of limitations for crimes against children. When I first started, there were many crimes that we were not able to prosecute because the statute of limitations for those crimes was so short that it actually could expire before a child was old enough to be able to disclose and talk about what had happened. I was determined to change that, and I did. It took an enormous amount of work, but when it was done and the governor was ready to sign the bill, he came to Bennington and had a public ceremony to sign the bill where he honored me for my work. I also, in the 8.5 years at Bennington, handled the most egregious juvenile cases. Juvenile cases are confidential, you won't read about them in the newspaper, but I handled the worst abuse cases, the worst neglect cases, the most complicated cases, and the worst cases of juveniles accused of crimes. Neither of my opponents has any of this experience. The current state's attorney played no role whatsoever in my work with the Supreme Court. She has rarely, if ever, tried a jury trial. And if you look in the Vermont Supreme Court listings, she does not have a single reported case in the Vermont Supreme Court where she was listed as the person who made the argument. The other candidate, while I was on the front line as a prosecutor for Bennington County, he was in Ohio. He only moved to Vermont a few years ago. He's only been admitted to Vermont as a lawyer since 2015, and he's never been a prosecutor. He's utterly lacking in the experience necessary for this job. Now, people ask me, why am I running? I have a great job. Why am I running for this? The answer is one word: opioids. I watched in the office as the crisis went from zero to what it is today. And I saw opportunity after opportunity after opportunity that was missed. No change made. The first time I heard the word heroin in Bennington County was about 10 years ago. and it was shocking to all of us in the office. It was a young mother who gave birth to a baby born addicted to heroin, and the baby had to be evacuated to the neonatal intensive care unit in Albany. It was shocking when that happened. And I asked, can we do a press release? We need to tell the community that heroin is in the community. We have a generation of young people who don't know how dangerous a drug this is. I think we need to act. My request was disregarded. And in fact, nothing was done to alert the people in the community at any time from the state's attorney's office. And the crisis just exploded and nothing was done. And the cases continued to be prosecuted in the same way that they would have been prosecuted in 1980. No change, no thought about fixing the problem. I've spoken to many people in the community, and I understand fully how much this crisis is affecting so many of us. And I'm the person who has the ability and the experience and the accomplishments to change it. It's not impossible. It can be done, and I will do it. I spent 8.5 years in that office thinking about what I would be doing to fix the opioid crisis. I'm ready. I'm going to talk about two of the most important and critical things that I think need to happen immediately. The first is we need to reduce the legally written prescriptions for opioids. All the studies show that there's a direct link between doctors writing opioid prescription pills and abuse in the community. And there's one very simple thing that we need to do that should have been done a long time ago, and that is that medical professionals who write opioids need to be able to access the basic criminal database in Vermont so that when they go to write a prescription for opioids, they can check on the computer and find out within a matter of 3 minutes, does this person have a criminal conviction for drugs? It's that simple. That's incredibly important information. It needs to be released to the medical community, and we need the legislature to change the law to make that happen. And I will urge the legislature to do that as soon as they're back in session. The other thing that we need is a drug court. We've needed it for 7 years at least, and it's even more critical today. A drug court is a simple thing. It's the same courtroom, it's the same judge. You just pick a specific time each week that you're going to hear that type of case. So for example, you pick Thursdays will be drug court day. And all of the drug court cases, the drug cases, get assigned for that Thursday. These cases are critical. Timing is critical. You need to handle them as swiftly as possible, because delay just means that a person's addiction gets more and more ingrained. And if the person is selling drugs, it just gets more drugs out in the community. These cases have to be our #1 priority in terms of time. We need to get them done. We need to get people into treatment. And that just has to happen. It's critical. Now, the current state's attorney has refused throughout her entire 3 terms to install a drug court and to treat these cases any differently than any other case. Her reasons make no sense. Her first reason is it'll cost too much and take money away from treatment. It's not going to cost too much. We can do it effectively and efficiently so that it'll cost the same amount. These are the same cases the judge is going to hear otherwise. The same lawyers are going to work on them. We're just going to give them a priority in terms of time. That shouldn't cost anything. The other reason that she gives is because it doesn't work. I find that remarkable, because to say that you're not going to try something because it might not work, it might be okay if you'd had success doing something else. But the undisputed fact is that nothing that she has done in 3 terms has in any way helped the opioid crisis. It is only getting worse. We cannot afford another 4 years of a state's attorney who has done nothing to change the crisis. The community got active in 2015 and asked for a meeting and invited the state's attorney to attend, and all kinds of groups attended. The state's attorney did not bother to show up. I read again that the same thing happened again before the election season this year in 2018. We just cannot afford another 4 years. We need change. We need someone who can think about this, tackle this problem, and move forward. I'm ready, willing, and able, and I have the ability to do it. Now, Early voting starts September 21st. Please vote for me, Christina Rainville, Independent for State's Attorney. Thank you for listening.